Imagine emerging from a wormhole into orbit around a planet so enormous it defies belief. 10 times the size of Earth, with an atmosphere so rich in oxygen that everything living on its surface grows to monstrous proportions. This is planet Merkato, the noisiest world in the known universe. The moment their lander pierced the thick green and gold atmosphere, Steve and Sebel realized the true scale of this behemoth. What they had mistaken for mountains were actually trees. Colossal skyscraper like giants that punched straight through the clouds, their crowns so high they wore caps of ice. The lander settled on a single branch wide enough to hold an entire city block. The instant the hatch opened, the noise assaulted them like a physical blow. A deafening roar of screeches, whistles, growls, bellows, and cackles collided in a chaotic symphony that rattled their bones and shook their suits. It sounded less like a forest and more like a frenzied marketplace during rush hour. Sebel, half smiling through the pain, named it on the spot, Planet Merkato, the noisy planet. As they clipped themselves to the massive branch and began their descent, every level revealed new horrors. Other trees grew directly out of the bark like parasites feeding on the giants. Strange creatures shrieked at them from hollow nests, their bodies covered in feathers, scales, or deadly quills. When one lunged, Steve was forced to fire his pulse sidearm, sending the beast tumbling silently into the abyss below. Hours passed. The light slowly faded until the world beneath them became a black, endless void. Their headlamps cut through the darkness, revealing roots as wide as rivers burrowing into soil that had never seen sunlight. That was when the true nightmare began. A worm the size of a subway train slithered into view, peacefully gnawing on fallen leaves. Suddenly, the roots around it came alive. They weren't roots at all, they were traps. They lashed out like striking serpents, coiling around the massive worm and slamming it violently against the trunk. Needle-like points extended and pierced its flesh with a sickening hiss. Within moments, the worm shriveled into a dry, leathery husk. The roots casually discarded the empty skin and retracted. Before Steve and Sebel could react, the ground itself shifted. Roots exploded upward, wrapping around their legs, arms, and torsos, slamming them hard against the tree trunk. Sebel screamed as the coils tightened around her chest, squeezing until she could barely breathe. Steve strained desperately for his weapon, his voice tight with fear. "Don't move. They'll drain us." The roots flexed, their glistening needle points angling straight toward their helmets. The entire forest seemed to roar louder, as if the planet itself was laughing at their helplessness. And then the needles struck forward. The needles struck and stopped, their razor-sharp points pressed hard against the nano-suits, scratching furiously but unable to pierce the microscopic scales. The roots pulsed once, confused, then retreated back into the bark with an angry hiss. Sebel collapsed to her knees, gasping for air. "I thought that was it." Steve's laugh was shaky. "If this suit wasn't fireproof, acid-proof, and everything else proof, we'd already be mulch." Determined to complete their mission, they hacked their way through the living forest floor, a twitching mat of roots and tendrils that felt more like muscle than soil. After hours of exhausting work surrounded by the planet's endless deafening chatter, Steve finally pulled free a small bag of dark, tangled earth. But as they began the long climb back up the colossal tree, a glossy serpent-like vine darted across their path. It lashed out, coiled around Steve's wrist, and snatched the bag of soil. Before they could stop it, the vine split the bag open, plunged tiny rootlets inside, and drained every nutrient in seconds. It then casually tossed the empty plastic aside and disappeared into the shadows. Sebel stared in disbelief. "Did it just farm our soil sample?" Steve's voice was flat. "This planet grows its own thieves." Exhausted, they fought through more aggressive vines and roots until they secured a second sample. Only then did they stagger back to the safety of their lander. Before sealing the hatch, Sebel paused beside the silver incubator, humming quietly in the cargo hold. Inside were the 20 Azist eggs entrusted to them by Schnecks before her death. "We can't keep moving them from world to world," she said softly. "They need stability." After a long moment, they made a difficult decision. They placed the incubator at the base of a sheltered root cluster, where the vines twitched curiously around it. Sebel whispered, as if speaking directly to Schnex, "We'll come back for them, I promise." Only then did they lift off, leaving 20 fragile lives behind on the chaotic, roaring world of Merkato. When they finally docked at the station, relief was short-lived. 2 stern investigators were waiting. They pulled Sebel aside for a cold, clipped conversation. "Sebel Tesfaye, we need a word." They made it perfectly clear. The agency had not forgotten her earlier threats to go public. From now on, all her communications would be permanently monitored. Sebel's jaw tightened as they treated her like a traitor. When she finally stepped back into the corridor, Steve asked if everything was okay. "Perfect," she replied, forcing a smile. But her mind was far away, on the incubator she had left hidden among the roots of Merkato. 20 fragile lives, pulsing gently in the darkness, waiting to hatch. And she prayed the agency would never find out.